You're about to watch a masterclass in political deception. It's a performance where a career politician, wrapped in the folksy disguise of a regular guy, tells you he understands your pain. He sees the problems you see. But when it comes time for solutions, he serves up a plate of lukewarm word salad designed to protect his powerful friends and keep the whole rotten system exactly as it is. And he does it all while our host, the everyman comedian, nods along, creating the perfect cozy space for this con job to unfold. We're going to pull back the curtain on this performance, piece by painful piece. Let's get into it.
So we're watching the election returns, and I'm getting updates because it's crazy, dude. There's a whole data apparatus that is feeding information into the central campaign. So like whatever the media is reporting on, we're like 15 minutes ahead of time. Mm-hmm. And we're asking questions like, oh, there's this, I'll never forget this. There's this one little county in Indiana that produced election results early. And we were like, oh my God, we did so much better in that county than we did in 2020 or even 2016. Yeah. And so that's a pretty good sign. Mm-hmm. And what happened is as these counties trickle in, you realize we're doing way better than we did even in 2016. Like, oh my God, Donald Trump's going to be the president and I'm going to be the vice president of the United States. And that was nuts.
Listen to this man describe his own ascension to the second highest office in the land like he's a teenager who just found out his crush likes him back. That was nuts, really? That's your professional assessment of becoming vice president? This is the kind of articulate political analysis we're getting from someone who's supposedly one heartbeat away from the presidency. But here's what's really disturbing about this passage. Notice how he frames their victory entirely around doing better than previous years, not around actually serving the American people. It's all about the game, the horse race, the data apparatus feeding them information. There's no mention of policy, no discussion of what they're actually going to do for Americans, just pure political narcissism wrapped in folksy language.
Donald Trump didn't do anything wrong with Jeffrey Epstein. Like, the guy is, whatever the Democrats and the media says about him, that's totally BS.
Notice the phrasing, didn't do anything wrong with Jeffrey Epstein. Not, didn't know Jeffrey Epstein, not, had no relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, but specifically, didn't do anything wrong with him. That's lawyers speak for, yes, there was a relationship, but trust me bro, it was totally innocent. This is the Vice President of the United States casually admitting that his boss had some kind of relationship with one of the most notorious criminals in modern history, but we're supposed to just take his word that it was all above board.
Here's my basic read on it. First of all, I'm the Vice President to President Trump. My loyalties are always going to be with the president. Mm-hmm. And I think that Elon, he's an incredible entrepreneur. He's actually done, I think Doge was really good. This sort of effort to root out waste, fraud, and abuse in our country was really good. And look, man, I'm always going to be loyal to the president. And I hope that eventually Elon kind of comes back into the fold. Maybe that's not possible now because he's gone so nuclear.
This is where things get really interesting. Vance is basically admitting that Elon Musk has gone completely off the rails, but he's trying to walk this impossible line between not alienating Trump's base who love Musk and not completely throwing the world's richest man under the bus. Notice how he stumbles over his words. He's actually done. I think those was really good. The man can't even form coherent sentences when he's trying to be diplomatic. But here's the real kicker. He says his loyalties are always going to be with the president, like he's some kind of medieval vassal pledging fealty to his lord. This isn't how American democracy is supposed to work. The vice president's loyalty should be to the Constitution and the American people, not to one man. But Vance just casually admits he's nothing more than Trump's lapdog, and he seems proud of it. And then he hopes Elon will come back into the fold, like this is some kind of cult that people can drift away from and return to at will.
Well, his feelings
but I hope it is, man.
Like his
because
feelings are hurt. Why though? Do you know why?
Yeah, I mean, so look, I think
first of all, my first thought was that it's a ruse, right? Because there's a lot of times where the media will put out a ruse or they'll use somebody like, I think the Diddy thing is a ruse. Like it's like, hey, like diverse communities, stay busy with this shit while we like move all these chess pieces, right? Sometimes that's what I feel like it is. So do you think it was, so obviously it was the bill. This is where it's happened. Something about the bill made him upset.
Yeah. So yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, again, I think he looked at the bill. He didn't like it. And I think it's a good bill. But again, there are things you can criticize about it. Like the president would be very open and say, this is not a perfect bill.
Yeah.
But Donald Trump doesn't get to write the bills, right? Congress has to write the bills.
Okay.
And you got to work with them to try to get something that is as good as possible.
Okay.
So here's what I'll say about the bill. Number one, prevents the biggest tax increase in American history.
It prevents it?
Prevents it. Because taxes are going to go up on everybody in a really big way at the end of 2025 because the old tax law expires at the end of 2025. So you're going to hit a big tax increase. We're trying to prevent that from happening.
Let me get this straight. Vance is bragging about preventing a tax increase that would only happen because of a law that Trump himself signed in his first term. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 was deliberately designed to expire for individual taxpayers while making corporate tax cuts permanent. This isn't some natural disaster they're heroically preventing. This is a problem they created. It's like an arsonist taking credit for calling the fire department. But here's what's really infuriating about this argument. They're framing basic tax policy as some kind of crisis that only they can solve, when in reality they're just cleaning up their own mess. And notice how he can barely string together a coherent sentence explaining it. It prevents it. Is this really the best they can do? This man is supposed to be explaining complex policy to the American people, and he sounds like he's having a stroke.
We're also trying to do stuff. Okay, so you got a lot of people working long overtime hours in this economy. We inherited bad inflation from Joe Biden, so no tax on overtime, no tax on tips. Right? We're in Bob Ritchie. We're in Kid Rock's great restaurant. His servers would not have to pay taxes on the hard-earned tips that they get when they're busting their ass doing a good job. So when working for Kid Rock, man, that's hard work, right? So I think that it's a good bill and it does a lot of good for the American people. But look, Elon's entitled to his opinion. I'm not saying he has to agree with the bill or agree with everything that I'm saying. I just think it's a huge mistake for the world's wealthiest man. I think one of the most transformational entrepreneurs ever, that's Elon, to be at this war with the world's most powerful man, who I think is doing more to save the country than anybody. I'm 40 years old, anybody in my lifetime. You think about it. It's a guy who, not even a year ago, nearly took a bullet in the process of campaigning, went back on the horse the next day.
This is pure cult of personality propaganda, and it's disgusting. Vance is literally arguing that because Trump got shot, he's somehow above criticism or accountability. That's not how democracy works. That's how authoritarian regimes operate. Getting shot doesn't make you a better leader. It just makes you a victim of violence. But Vance is weaponizing Trump's trauma to shut down legitimate political discourse. And calling him the world's most powerful man, really? Not the President of the United States, not the leader of the free world, but the most powerful man. This is the language of dictatorship, not democracy. The man is so flustered trying to praise his boss that he's literally malfunctioning. This is what happens when you prioritize loyalty over competence.
And if you look, obviously I'm biased, but you look at what we've done on the border, you look at what we've done with trade, fighting back against a generation of theft of the American dream, which is what the president's trade policies are starting to do. I just think you got to have some respect for him and say, look, yeah, we don't have to agree on every issue. I'm talking about if you're Elon Musk, you don't have to agree with us on every issue, but is this war actually in the interest of the country? I don't think so. So hopefully Elon figures it out, comes back into the fold. I know the president, for a couple days, I'll tell you, just, I don't want to reveal too many confidences, but, was getting a little frustrated, feeling like some of the criticisms were unfair coming from Elon, but I think has been very restrained because the president doesn't think that he needs to be in a blood feud with Elon Musk. And I actually think if Elon chilled out a little bit.
Do you think Elon Musk is for the people?
I mean, I think that he's making a mistake in going after the president.
Okay.
Yeah, I think his heart is in the right place, man.
Okay.
I do. I think he got into this for the right reasons. I think he's frustrated. I think he's an emotional guy. Honestly, I'm a very emotional guy.
This is where we need to completely demolish this ridiculous narrative that Elon Musk is some kind of champion of the common man. Vance is sitting here defending a man who has a net worth of over $200 billion, who bought Twitter for $44 billion just to turn it into his personal playground, and who regularly manipulates cryptocurrency markets with his tweets. This is your man of the people? A guy who can afford to buy entire social media platforms on a whim? Let's be real about what Elon Musk actually represents. He's the ultimate elite, a man so wealthy and powerful that he can single-handedly influence elections, crash markets, and shape public discourse. The fact that he posts memes and says edgy things doesn't make him relatable, it makes him a billionaire with too much time on his hands. And Vance is defending him like he's some kind of scrappy underdog fighting for the little guy. This is the same man who fired thousands of Twitter employees via email, who has been accused of union busting at Tesla, and who literally named his company Tesla after stealing it from the actual founders. If this is what passes for being for the people in Vance's world, then we're living in a complete fantasy. The man of the people doesn't own multiple mansions, doesn't have a private space program, and doesn't get to decide which political candidates succeed based on his personal whims. Wake up, people. Billionaires are not your friends, no matter how many podcasts they go on.
Okay, so one of the crazy things we all figured out like first week or so we're in the White House, okay, is there was a payment that should be stopped because the president signed an executive order to stop a payment. And this is like day one of the White House. We're like, okay, how do we stop this payment? Because somebody's trying to make this payment. And nobody knew where like the computer was that actually wired the money from the US taxpayer to this entity.
This might be the most accidentally revealing moment in the entire interview. Vance just admitted that the United States government is so incompetent that they can't even figure out how to stop a payment they want to stop. Think about that for a second. These are the people who are supposed to be running the most powerful nation on earth, and they can't locate a computer. This isn't just government waste, this is government failure at the most basic level. But here's what's really terrifying. If they can't figure out how to stop payments they want to stop, how are they going to stop payments to actual bad actors? How are they going to prevent foreign interference, terrorist financing, or any other serious threat to national security? Vance is laughing about this like it's some kind of funny anecdote, but what he's really describing is a complete breakdown of governmental competence. This should scare every American, regardless of political affiliation.
Everybody's a First Amendment right.
Are you free to disagree with Trump ever?
Yeah,
do you feel like you can?
Of course. I mean, the way that I put it is, if I have a disagreement with the president, then it is my job, obviously, to provide the president honest counsel. Like, he doesn't need me to be a doormat. He needs me to actually say what I think about an issue. But when the president makes a decision, man, he's the general. And when the general makes a decision, everybody's got to go and execute that order. And that's kind of how I think about my job, really, is to be a good ally and a good friend, provide honest counsel to the president, but also when a decision's made, you go out and get it done.
Here we have the sitting vice president of the United States literally describing the American government as a military operation with Trump as the commanding general. This is not how civilian government works in a democracy, folks. The president is not a general, and the vice president is not a soldier following orders. They're both elected officials who swore an oath to the Constitution, not to each other. But Vance has completely internalized this authoritarian mindset where questioning the leader's decisions is tantamount to insubordination. Notice how he frames honest counsel as something that only happens before decisions are made. Once Trump decides, Vance becomes nothing more than an order-following automaton. This is the exact opposite of the checks and balances that are supposed to prevent tyranny in American government. The vice president should be an independent voice, not a yes man who goes out and gets it done, regardless of whether the decision is legal, constitutional, or even sane.
Does he listen to many people, or does he listen to just one or two?
He listens to a ton of people. It's one of the more interesting things about his leadership style is if he's got a big decision to make, he talks to everybody.
Got it.
And I think it's why he's like in touch with normal people is because he doesn't just talk to like congressmen or people with a lot of money. He tries to talk to everybody. Like, I've seen him ask the gardener at Mar-a-Lago what he thinks about a particular issue. I've seen him ask the people who work in the kitchen at the White House what they think about an issue.
This is pure political theater designed to make Trump seem like a man of the people.
Like the part that the president got immediate action on, if you think about this, we came in, the president empowered Border Patrol to stop letting people come across the border illegally. That stopped pretty much immediately. You got like a 96% drop in border crossings immediately.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, is you got 21 million people in here illegally. You got to send them home. You got to process them. You got to actually, sometimes some of these people, are entitled to some kind of trial for one reason or another.
He talks about sending all these people home like it's some kind of simple logistical problem, when in reality Trump isn't sending anybody home. This is pure political theater designed to fool their base into thinking they're tough on immigration while doing absolutely nothing substantive about it. Where are the mass deportations? Where are the buses and planes full of people being sent back? They've been in office for months now, and the deportation numbers are pathetic, and Trump can't even manage a fraction of that while bragging about his 96% drop in border crossings. It's complete bullshit. And then Vance casually mentions that some of these people are entitled to some kind of trial, like due process is just an inconvenient technicality. This reveals the fundamental contradiction at the heart of their immigration policy. They want to sound tough for the cameras, but they're too incompetent and too constrained by actual laws to do what they're promising. So instead of admitting they can't deliver on their deportation fantasies, they just keep inflating the numbers and talking tough while accomplishing nothing. This is the Vice President of the United States admitting that their entire immigration policy is basically political theater designed to fool people into thinking they're doing something when they're actually doing nothing.
So it costs a lot of money to run for office, and you got to go and raise money.
Yeah.
But I think that if your attitude is, I owe something to these people who gave me money, then you're going to end up being corrupted. And you've got to kind of take the attitude of, they're supporting me because they agree with me.
This is where Vance accidentally tells the truth about how broken our political system is. He admits that campaigns cost obscene amounts of money. His Senate race cost $45 million. The presidential campaign cost $1.2 billion. But then he tries to pretend that this doesn't create corruption. That's absolute bullshit. When you need to raise that much money, you are by definition beholden to the people who can write those checks. And those people aren't ordinary Americans. They're billionaires, corporations, and special interests. But Vance wants us to believe that he can somehow separate himself from this reality through sheer force of will. It's the political equivalent of saying you can jump off a building and not be affected by gravity. The system is designed to create corruption, and pretending otherwise is either stupid or dishonest.
And obviously, like, you have conversations with him. Like, you mentioned Peter Thiel. I see a lot of crazy stuff on the internet about Peter Thiel. Like, you know, he's always been a friend of mine. He's always been one of the smartest people I've ever met. Like, just a very thoughtful dude. But he's literally never asked me once for anything.
So he just believed in you?
He believed in me. He agreed with me on a lot of issues. I mean, he definitely has, like, said, hey, I don't agree with you on this, but he's never said, I don't agree with you on this, therefore you should vote differently or act differently.
This is probably the most naive or dishonest thing Vance says in this entire interview. He wants us to believe that Peter Thiel, one of the most calculating and strategic businessmen in Silicon Valley, just gave him millions of dollars out of the goodness of his heart with no expectation of return. That's not how billionaires operate, JD. That's not how politics works. That's not how the real world functions. But notice how he frames it. Thiel believed in him and agreed with him on issues. What issues? What policies? He doesn't specify because he can't. The truth is that Thiel's investment in Vance was strategic, designed to get someone in power who would be sympathetic to tech industry interests. And the fact that Vance can't see this, or pretends not to see it, shows either incredible naivety or deliberate dissection. Either way, it's disqualifying for someone in his position.
So, like, let me give you an example where this might be useful.
Okay.
Let's say you catch an illegal immigrant, okay, and that person's using a social security number, but the Department of Homeland Security that arrests the person can't actually figure out what social security number that illegal immigrant is, what name it's attached to, okay? Or, you know, let's say you're, like, investigating some terrorist and the FBI arrests the person, but, you know, there are information about, like, where the person lived a couple years ago that you'd like to have, so you'd maybe like to go, you know, talk to their friends or associates or whatever.
Yeah.
But my understanding is that it does sound odd, but that what they're trying to do is take all the information that the Department of Homeland Security has, that the FBI has, and just make it so that it's actually not in some hyper inefficient system. It's all sort of accessible.
This is where things get really scary. Vance is casually defending a massive expansion of government surveillance capabilities while admitting he's not an expert on the system. He's literally saying that the government should be able to access all information from multiple agencies in one place, but he's framing it as an efficiency improvement. That's not efficiency, that's a police state. The fact that these systems were previously separated wasn't a bug, it was a feature. It was designed to prevent exactly the kind of comprehensive surveillance that Palantir enables. But Vance brushes off these concerns by comparing it to Facebook ads. The difference is that Facebook can't arrest you, detain you, or destroy your life. The government can. And when you give the government the ability to instantly access all information about any citizen, you're creating the infrastructure for authoritarianism. The fact that he doesn't understand this difference is terrifying.
And here's the thing. Modern technology is just crazy and weird, and it affects our privacy. And I think we don't have to think that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. It is like a reality of the world that we live in.
Right.
And
sometimes I get a little romantic about things.
Well, I mean, look.
And I think it's going to go back in time.
I mean, look, everybody, I kind of agree with you. I think people are sort of going to rebel against technology a little bit. In some ways they already are. But I mean, look, dude, if I, this has happened to me so many times where I'm talking to my wife, like, oh, what are we gonna make for dinner for the kids tonight? Oh, let's just like do DoorDash or Grubhub. Mm-hmm. And then you go on like X or you go on, Facebook or Instagram, and there's like an advertisement for a DoorDash coupon. And it's like, well, I was just talking about this 10 minutes ago. So we know that big technology spies on us and harvests our data. I honestly worry more about that than about like connecting the DHS system to the FBI system.
This is perhaps the most dangerous argument in the entire interview. Vance is using the fact that private companies collect data to justify government surveillance. This is like saying that because burglars exist, we should give the police keys to everyone's house. The difference between corporate data collection and government surveillance is fundamental. Corporations want to sell you things, the government can imprison you. But Vance is deliberately conflating these to make massive government surveillance seem reasonable. This is classic authoritarian rhetoric. Normalize the surveillance state by pointing to existing privacy violations. And the fact that he's more worried about Facebook ads than government surveillance shows how completely he's lost the plot on what the real threats to American freedom are.
I think it's important to be open. So Palantir, you asked about Peter Thiel. Palantir is actually one of the companies that he invested in, right? So,
he doesn't run it.
My understanding is he doesn't run it, but I don't believe that Palantir is collecting any information. I believe it's purely building a database that's sort of combining the information. I might have some of my team that you guys get. Is that right? Is that accurate? Okay.
This is the perfect opening act for the JD Vance show. Theo, in his own way, voices a real, legitimate fear of the modern surveillance state. He's talking about Palantir, a company co-founded by Vance's billionaire sugar daddy, Peter Thiel. Theo's fear, while a bit cartoonish with the sniper talk, is about a private, unaccountable intelligence agency having the power of a government and being used against citizens. It's a raw, honest fear. And what's JD's response? First, he pulls a classic semantic trick. I don't believe that Palantir is collecting any information. I believe it's purely building a database that's sort of combining information. My friend, that is the definition of collecting information. It's like saying, I'm not eating the cake, I'm just combining it with my stomach. It's an insultingly stupid attempt to muddy the waters.
And so I think that's where it gets really scary for like regular person on the street. I'm like, well, if this is the company, because you see videos of like horrific stuff online.
Sure. Very sad stuff.
And you're like, well, if this is the company we're hiring, how do I know that I might not be walking down the street and just a sniper bullet could hit me from them?
Then comes the real punchline to the joke. He says the only protection we have is to elect the right people. Do you see the grift? He identifies a terrifying problem, a private surveillance state run by his donors, and his solution is to vote for him. It's a non-answer. It's a campaign slogan masquerading as a solution. He's not offering a policy to restrain Palantir. He's using your fear of Palantir as a sales pitch for himself. He takes a problem that his own backers created and uses it as leverage for more power. It's a beautifully cynical and shameless loop, and Theo just lets him get away with it.
Do I think it's a genocide no. And here's the reason why I don't think it's a genocide, because I don't think that the Israelis are purposely trying to go in and murder every Palestinian. I don't think that's what they're doing. I think they got hit hard, and I think they're trying to, like, sort of destroy this terrorist organization, and war is hell, and that is true. I also think it's true, man. I mean, I've seen people on my side of the political aisle. I'm a Republican, you know that, but your audience may not, who will see these videos of these innocent Palestinian kids and say, oh, well, they had it coming to them. No. Like, if you have a soul, your heart should break when you see a little kid who's suffering, which is why we have the policy that we have, which is we're trying to eliminate the conflict, eliminate the source of the conflict, so that we can actually bring some peace and some humanitarian assistance into people. And that's my basic view.
Pay very close attention here, because this is the most disgusting and effective form of political rhetoric there is. Vance performs empathy. He puts on his sad face and says all the right things. My heart breaks. It's heartbreaking. Innocent people. He talks about losing our humanity. It's a brilliant performance designed to make you think he's a deeply feeling, reasonable man trapped in the middle of a complex issue. But look at the reality. He acknowledges the horrific stuff and the videos of people picking up pieces of their children, but then what? He immediately pivots to the standard, unwavering pro-Israel talking points. He rejects the term genocide, not based on the outcomes, the dead children he just finished lamenting, but on a supposed lack of intent, as if he's a mind reader. He's trying to have it both ways. He wants the moral credit for feeling sad about dead kids, while simultaneously supporting and funding the policies and the military that are killing them. He sets up a false equivalence, scolding the left for ignoring the October 7th attack and the right for ignoring Palestinian kids suffering, painting himself as the enlightened one who sees both. But his proposed policy isn't some middle ground, it's the exact same hardline policy of unconditional support. Theo even tees it up for him, calling it a massacre, but then immediately deflating his own point by saying people have different thoughts about it. And that's fine. No, Theo, it's not fine. You're letting him use the language of peace to sell a policy of war. Vance's talk of diplomacy is a smokescreen. You can't claim to be a peacemaker when you're handing one side a machine gun and the other a band-aid.
So what that executive order, the reason why I think that approach is going to work way better than anything the Biden administration is doing, is it's going to say the Americans get to pay less and the Europeans are going to have to pay up a little bit. You'll know more about what you're spending on, but it also is more fair to Americans. And I think that's a win-win scenario, because you can't expect Americans to pay 10 times for prescription drugs what other people pay. It's also, by the way, not that this is the main issue, but it's bankrupting people and it's bankrupting our country. Because we spend so much more on healthcare, and that's a major driver of our budgetary problem.
It's the number one cause of bankruptcy is medical debt.
Yes,
and
it
it's
is.
like people aren't afraid to get sick because they'll be sick. They're afraid to get sick because they can't afford to be sick.
That's right.
His solution is a perfect example of populist misdirection. He brings up a Trump-era executive order on price transparency. This sounds good, but it's a complete sham. Knowing that a hospital is going to charge you an insane $50,000 for a procedure doesn't make that $50,000 affordable. It just lets you watch the financial train wreck in slow motion. The core problem is not a lack of price tags, it's a for-profit system where insurance companies, pharmaceutical giants, and hospital conglomerates are incentivized to squeeze every last penny out of sick and dying people. Then he serves up the second part of the grift, blaming foreigners. He claims we pay more so that Europeans pay less. This is a nationalist fairy tale designed to redirect your anger from the American corporations robbing you to some German guy getting his insulin at a fair price. He's not proposing to regulate the drug companies. He's not proposing to get rid of the parasitic insurance middlemen. His solution is to make Europeans pay more, which does absolutely nothing to lower your bill. He is defending the profits of the pharmaceutical industry while pretending to be your champion. He even mentions Bobby Kennedy as the guy to implement this, knowing full well that Kennedy's a populist darling right now. It's all calculated branding. He's selling you snake oil that he claims will cure the disease, but the fine print says it was manufactured by the company that invented the disease in the first place. What we have just witnessed is not an interview. It is a meticulously crafted political performance, a masterclass in the art of populist deception. This is the playbook of the New Right, and JD Vance is its star pupil. To truly understand the danger of what he and his ilk represent, we have to move beyond the specific topics and dissect the very method of the con itself. It's a free act play designed to win your heart, redirect your rage, and ultimately, betray your interests. Act 1, the validation. The performance begins with an embrace. Vance doesn't argue with your pain, he validates it. He listens to Theo's anxieties about a surveillance state, the horrors of war, and the crushing weight of medical debt, and he nods sagely, saying, "You're right to be angry. You're right to be scared." He uses the language of shared suffering. "My heart breaks," he says, positioning himself next to you on the couch, looking at the same horrifying images. He makes you feel seen. He's not a politician from Washington, he's a fellow traveler, another victim of this broken system. This first act is crucial because it lowers your defenses. He's not here to lecture you, he's here to grieve with you. He earns your trust by mirroring your despair. Act 2, the misdirection. Once your guard is down and he has established this bond of shared victimhood, the sleight of hand begins. In every single instance, the blame for the problem is surgically shifted from the actual source of power to a convenient scapegoat. Consider Palantir. The problem is a private surveillance company, funded by Vance's own billionaire patron, Theo, that fuses corporate and government data into a weapon of social control. The source of the problem is the unholy alliance of Silicon Valley capital and the state. But who does Vance blame? He doesn't. He reframes the problem as one of government misuse. The solution isn't to break up or regulate Palantir, it's to elect the right people, like him, to wield its power responsibly. The predator is recast as a tool, and the only problem is who holds the leash. Consider healthcare. The problem is a parasitic, for-profit system where pharmaceutical companies and insurers bleed the American public dry for record profits. The source of the problem is a domestic corporate oligarchy. But who does Vance blame? The Europeans. He spins a nationalist fairy tale that we are being fleeced to subsidize socialized medicine abroad. Your anger is expertly redirected from the boardroom in New Jersey to a pensioner in Berlin. He defends the very corporations bankrupting you by making you feel like you're in a global economic war with other working people. This is the core of the grift. He takes a problem created by capital and the powerful interests that fund his career, and he blames foreigners, the government, or some vague cultural malaise. He never, ever points the finger at the boardroom. Act 3, the fake cure. The final act is the presentation of the solution, which is always the same, JD Vance himself. The solution is never a structural change. It's never a policy that would meaningfully challenge the power of his donors. It's not a wealth tax to fund healthcare. It's not aggressive antitrust action against big tech. It's not cutting off the blank checks to the military-industrial complex. The solution is always an act of will, embodied in one man. Trust him. Elect him. Give him power. He will fix it through the sheer force of his good intentions. His answer to every systemic crisis is a campaign slogan. This transforms politics from a battle of policies and material interests into a cult of personality. You don't need to understand the details, you just need to believe in the man. And what is the role of our host, Theo Vaughn, in this production? He is the authenticity laundering machine. Theo's brand is his genuineness. He is the everyman, the unfiltered voice of the regular guy. By sitting in Theo's studio, bathed in the warm glow of his folksy charm, Vance gets to cosplay as one of us. Theo provides the perfect, non-confrontational environment for the grift to unfold. He asks the right questions but lacks the killer instinct or the policy knowledge to dissect the empty answers. He is a human shield protecting Vance from any real scrutiny. He allows a Yale law graduate, a venture capitalist, and a senator bankrolled by the most powerful figures in tech to present himself as just another dude from Ohio, worried about the same things we are. This entire performance is bigger than JD Vance. It is the blueprint for a political movement that seeks to harness the righteous anger of the working class against its own economic interests. It will use left-wing language to diagnose the problem, railing against corporate greed, forever wars, and a rigged system, while implementing a hard-right agenda of deregulation, tax cuts for the wealthy, and corporate empowerment. The social issues, the culture wars that get your blood boiling, are the anesthetic. They are the distraction that keeps you from noticing that the populist champion you elected is voting to let your boss pollute your water and to let your insurance company deny your claims. This is a far more insidious threat than the old-school, country club republicanism of the past. That was an enemy you could see. This is an enemy that wears your face and speaks your words. It's a betrayal that calls itself a revolution. The most crucial act of intellectual self-defense in our time is to learn to spot this performance. It is to listen past the comforting diagnosis and critically examine the prescription. Ask yourself one simple question about every solution they offer. Really, does this benefit? Does it challenge power, or does it serve it? Because they are counting on you being too mesmerized by the show to read the fine print on the contract. And the contract says you get the rhetoric, and they get everything else.